All right, no more contacts. I just wanted to have fun, but I'm sick and tired of my eyes fighting me like for 20 minutes, and that's just putting them in. And then I review the movie like, so this movie. Yeah. So yeah, you just get my normal eyes. How do my eyes look? Like I've been messing with them for 20 minutes? I know, but we start a new week of the horror movie review extravaganza, and that means it's Scream Day. Scream 3, the concluding chapter of the trilogy. I mean, well, as it was. Then we got Scream 4. Guess we're getting Scream 5. But concluding chapter of the trilogy nonetheless. Sidney Prescott's actually, I don't want to say living large, but I love her house. Like, that's my dream. When YouTube burns or my channel gets destroyed, I would love to live in a place like that, just in the mountains somewhere. Point is, everyone thought the Ghostface killings were done, and then Cotton Weary gets offed at the beginning. Dude had #1 show called 100% Cotton, which is a brilliant name for his show. But it's pretty much like Jerry Springer, so at first people were like, is he just piss people off, and is that just it? But of course, more Ghostface killings, so the band gets back together to help Sidney, and so here we are. And okay, I mean, I gotta give a couple dues that I haven't given for the Scream movies before, because I ramble. I'm asked a lot, like, do you script your reviews? No. I just ramble. But as I ramble, sometimes things get left behind and overlooked, and that's my bad. Maybe I should script them. But it probably won't, because if I script it, it'll sound scripted. I don't want to sound scripted. So this is me paying back some dues that got overlooked before. All right, first of all, Matthew Lillard in the original Scream. I actually purposely didn't talk about him. That wasn't an overlook, you know? For those 2 people out there who hadn't seen Scream 1, I didn't want to spoil anything. I suppose I could have talked about Matthew Lillard a little bit, but now that we're talking about Scream 3, hey, spoilers. Also, spoiler alert for Scream 3. Look, you don't read the comments, I do. If I don't give those disclaimers, I'm gonna hear about it. Give me a nightmare. But Matthew Lillard in the original Scream is amazing. I cannot think of an actor in a slasher movie that had more fun with being the killer in a slasher movie. I cannot see the cover of my Goblin's Revenge book without seeing his face. He's crazy, he's unhinged, he's kind of frightening, and he's hilarious. In a word, he's epic. Also, the Scream soundtrack, that Marco Beltrami soundtrack, I have the record. I have it on LP. It's amazing. Some of my favorite horror movies out there, I can think of the theme right out the gate. You hear the first couple notes, you're like, that's from that horror movie. I love the soundtrack, whether it be the main theme, a couple of the side themes, good stuff. Also, screenwriter Kevin Williamson. He wrote Scream 1, he wrote Scream 2, he did a great job. He did not write Scream 3. And it shows. And no matter what I say about Scream 3 in this review, Scream 3 still has that line in which Gale Weathers is quoted saying pop culture is the politics of the 21st century. Nailed it there. Not that Scream 3 doesn't have some stuff going for it. I mean, the returning cast is great. Neve Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox. They're all great because they've all been great before. I feel like Gale Weathers, Courtney Cox's character, I feel like she kind of becomes this needy girlfriend in this movie. But I can't deny, in a dumb, fun way, I guess, when I just started slipping into the fact, I was like, oh, okay, Scream 3 is this kind of movie. Let's just go there. I had fun with the 2 Gales going around doing their investigative shit. But the returning cast have been great before. They're great now. The introduction of Detective Kincaid, played by Patrick Dempsey, I thought he was a good addition. Though this is the first movie with only 1 killer. But if you look at Detective Kincaid, he might have been the other killer. I'm not convinced he's not. He has a whole stalker file on Sidney Prescott. That just could be called good police work. Could also be called stalker vibes. He shows up at the mansion at the very end without his partner. He very well could have been the second killer, and then, when the killer turns on him and smacks his head up against the fireplace, maybe all bets were off at that point. Maybe that might be a reveal in Scream 5. Don't know. But I'm just saying, he at least adds that kind of intrigue where you're like, what if he was a killer and he just kind of got away with it? Just Scream 3. Well, Scream is always about family, right? If you look at all the Scream movies, there's always a family element at work in there. But whereas it could have wrapped up in Scream 2, and Scream 2 was kind of the end, I feel like with Scream 3, the thought was, well, we kind of have to keep going with that. Plus, we need a killer that somehow is going to pick up the Ghostface murders, so let's just make shit up. And it did. So the plot of Scream 3 is back in the day when Maureen Prescott, Sidney's mom, was like 19 years old. She had this secret life in Hollywood for a couple years. And then the producer of these grade B slasher flicks. He was known for having parties at his place where girls could meet powerful dudes and those dudes can get them roles in movies, and so she was sexually assaulted. Right, so, and also this plot point is why I don't even take Hollywood people seriously when they're like, oh, Harvey Weinstein, I had no idea Harvey Weinstein did that shit. Because like, yeah, you did. It was such an open thing in Hollywood. It's a plot point in this Hollywood movie and no one blinked or thought it was weird. Harvey Weinstein was even a producer on Scream 3. So yeah, it was like such open knowledge in Hollywood that when people are like, oh shit, I had no idea. I was like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, you did. So anyhow, it's kind of a side thought, but back to the review. So Maureen Prescott had a child, and years later when this dude became an adult, tracked her down. She didn't want anything to do with him, so the dude was pissed, and so the dude got Billy Loomis to kill her. And basically he was behind Billy Loomis's motivation and everything from the beginning. Of course, it's that kind of movie. Billy Loomis's own motivation, that wasn't enough, you know? You had to have this other villain, you know, this super boss behind the boss, the guy behind the guy that made it all happen, you know, set everything in motion. I've just never been a fan of that. And this next thing, I don't know where this came from, but it's like, they were like, oh, we've had the voice box, let's have the voice box times 10. So this voice box can just emulate anyone's voice, which there is tech out there that can do that, but you can still tell it's a robot. This is pitch perfect. This is someone's voice. Enough to where Sydney's gonna be framed at the end using that voice box. So my question is, was this known tech out there? Did he just make this voice box? Because if he didn't make this thing himself, that means it's out there, and any detective would be like, yeah, but did they use that voice synthesizer thing? That's possible. I don't know how he got the voices other than they were like, well, we need to be able to do that in this movie to make this ridiculous movie work. So the movie just has these conveniences that were written in for the sake of like, well, we're not really gonna have a movie if we don't write this ridiculous stuff in. There's even this one ridiculously convenient kill in this movie. You thought Sydney showing up to the stage at the end of Scream 2, you thought that was convenient? I did. You can't even quantify how convenient this is, though I'll give it credit for being one of the more interesting kills because a lot of the kills in Scream 3 are very blood-lacking stab wounds. But there's a scene where the killer's faxing all the stuff, and rather than just, you know what, we're running outside, fuck this, calling 911, they're like, no, we need to stay here and read this novel that this fax machine's vomiting out. We're kind of invested at this point. So this guy's like, oh, the lights are out, and he lights this lighter, and it says the killer will show mercy to the one who smells the gas. He's like, oh, and he blows up because I guess there was gas that he didn't smell. That's like, what are the odds? What is this, the movie Paycheck? How did he know that would happen? Now, I'm not saying this is the only movie that has conveniences like that, but the difference is between a movie that can hide it and a movie that's just not even trying. I also enjoy the fact that Randy's back in VHS form, but he's back to give the rules of the trilogy, which I love. But also, this is another moment where the movie starts going too far into the meta, and I half expected them to realize they're in a movie directed by Wes Craven. Because Randy says, oh, one of the rules of the trilogy is that if you're dealing with an unexpected backstory, and Sydney's like, oh shit, I've been having visions of my mom. It's just kind of crazy that she's like, oh, I've just been having dreams about my mom. Obviously, we're in the concluding chapter of this trilogy. See, the rules of surviving a horror movie, as said in the original Scream by Randy, it served to inform the audience about horror movie formula. The audience feels informed, also feels connected with the movie as they're watching it, because it's what Randy was saying is true. Even the rules he brought up in Scream 2 about the sequel, absolutely applicable. Because they're very simple. Body count's always bigger, death scenes are always much more elaborate, absolutely true. And I absolutely buy the fact that Randy would be listing off the rules of this concluding chapter of a trilogy as he did in Scream 3. The killer's immortal and all that, but Scream 3 actually does a cool thing with that, in which the killer looks immortal, but he has a bulletproof vest. It's a simple, grounded, real way of illustrating that, and it makes sense for the movie. Sydney Prescott randomly having dreams and visions of her dead mother before she knew the rules of the trilogy, and then she's like, oh whoa, I'm having visions of my dead mom. Obviously, because it's one of the rules. We're stepping dangerously close to the ethereal realm of premonition. It just seems out of place in Scream. About as out of place as Jay and Silent Bob cameoing in Scream 3. No, I'm not saying Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith cameo. I'm saying Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith cameo as their characters Jay and Silent Bob. Then Wes Craven was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and they parodied Scream in one scene. You just feel like Kevin Smith and Wes Craven were like, well, I'll be in yours if you're in mine. The whole thing works for Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back because it's Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Scream is not supposed to have that Jay and Silent Bob cross-promotion vibe going on. And it altered my perception on how I even see Scream 3. I mean, at that point, I was like, okay, so this is just kind of an inside joke among Hollywood people about Hollywood. That's what Scream 3 is. And these are the ways Scream 3 is just kind of becoming a parody of Scream. It's more scary movie than it is Scream, you know? It's almost like it's spoofing itself. See, before Scream 3, Scream was always a thriller, horror, slasher movie with horror movie commentary first, with some humor in it. Scream 3 feels closer to a comedy slash horror movie backlot parody with some slasher movie elements in it. Just there wasn't enough horror to offset those other elements, and really, you can kind of blame it on the time. The movie even addresses it, which is a thing that movies do when there's something holding the movie back. When the characters address it, it's like it softens the blow. The director's told, look, violence in movies is a big thing right now. And it was in the late 90s. That conversation ramped up because of real world violence. Thus, Scream 3 is a lot less bloody. Some of the stabbings are off camera, like Emily Mortimer when she's getting stabbed. She's flailing around, but you don't actually see her getting stabbed. It's like they were like, look, you need to flail more because we can't show you get stabbed. There's no scene like when Sarah Michelle Gellar gets stabbed and you see the knife going in, you're like, woo. Not that you don't see Cotton Weary get stabbed at the beginning of the movie. It's probably one of the bloodier kills. A lot of the kills are just blood-lacking stabbings that aren't interesting. An easy way to judge is just look at the light kills between Scream 1 and Scream 3. When the cameraman, Kenny, when he got his throat cut, fair amount of blood coming out of his neck. Scream 3, Lance Henriksen's character gets his throat cut, little bit of blood, then he gets thrown to the ground. Really, in terms of violence, Scream 3 could have been a PG-13 movie. So that's what Scream 3 is. It's an honorary PG-13 conclusion of the Scream trilogy. Look, in the end, by the end, I actually do appreciate Scream 3 for the fact that it does have a good sense of finality. You do feel like this story's over. The Ghostface killings are done. Sydney's story is wrapped up. Scream 3 is just the moment where it flew a little too close to the sun, got buried in its own meta world, became that sequel that was making shit up to have a sequel made, but not in that ironic way that Scream 2 did, because Scream 2 still tried to be horror. Regardless, if you're down to watch a Scream trilogy, Scream 3 would probably be a better time if you're drunk. Yeah, now it's the party. All right, so Scream 3, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Is it the weakest of the Screams, or is that Scream 2, maybe Scream 4? But whatever you think, comment below, let me know. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.